I'm Alan Winson with my podcast partner Rebecca McKean, and this is barcrawlradio. We are now at the Dubliner Bar in Washington, D.C. That's 4F Street Northwest, and we're here with members of Witness Against Torture.
Witness Against Torture, or WAT, is an extended community of citizens who come together in Washington each January to fast and demonstrate to end the horrors of the imprisonment of 40 Muslim men in the U.S. prison in Guantanamo.
Guantanamo Prison was opened 18 years ago. All the prisoners who are there now have been there for more than a decade, most without charge, and they cannot even be charged because evidence against them was gotten through torture, which, of course, is illegal.
As part of today's BCR episode, we will have a conversation with 4 activists who have dedicated their lives and energy to peace and justice in a clearly unjust country. These wonderful, amazing people have been protesting in our nation's capital all week, and this evening they broke a week-long fast. Welcome all to barcrawlradio. Everyone has something to drink? Almost.
I see a lot of you got Guinness. How do you like the Guinness? Is it
good for you?
I know it's good for you, but is it good? Is it really good?
Is it a good Guinness?
It's a little.
My family is pretty Irish, and I always shamed them because I hate Guinness.
Well, you're drinking it now.
Till you go to
I'm
Ireland.
drinking a half and half. So
All right.
I'm getting my
better
toe
when
in
it
the
And
door.
Tom,
to
you're just having
transport.
a glass of
7
water.
Up.
I'm 100% Irish, but I only drink Guinness in Ireland. I was told that's where it tastes great.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
We have a bar in New York called the Poets Society. The Poets? What's it called, Alan?
It's called the Dead
Dead
Poet.
Poets.
It's called the Dead Poet. Yeah.
They do pour a good Guinness there.
I want to make a correction, actually, to our introduction because
Please do.
We, as a community, have made a conscious effort to stop using the word citizen until all of our community members are able to continue existing here in the United States.
So you don't call yourself
No, so we're a group of people. Instead of a group of citizens,
Okay.
because we want to make sure that people who are undocumented or without status are also included in our work.
Thank you.
And included in the community.
Yeah.
That is this nation, or should be this nation. So
Right.
what we'd like to do right now, everyone introduce themselves to give you an opportunity. So we'll start with Chrissy.
I am Chrissy Stonebreaker Martinez. I'm the co-director of the Interreligious Task Force on Central America and Colombia, or IRTF Cleveland. And I sit on the council of a bunch of amazing organizations, the Fellowship of Reconciliation, of which I'm a UN representative for, as well as the School of America's Watch, and a few other organizations, but I'll highlight those 2 today.
Right.
And my family is from Colombia and Appalachia, and that has a lot to do with why I am involved in movement work.
And I spoke with Chrissy earlier this week, and we got to sit down for about a half hour and got a lot of background.
Yeah.
And that'll be presented part of an extra to this program.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Okay. Brian, we've talked a lot.
Yes.
Tell us who you think you are.
Who do you think you are?
Where do I get off?
Exactly.
I'm asked that often. I'm Brian Terrell, and I live on a Catholic worker farm in rural Iowa, and I work with Voices for Creative Nonviolence based in Chicago. And in that work, these last years, I've traveled quite a bit, including some of the countries where the people from Guantanamo, imprisoned there, come from. I've been to Bahrain and Afghanistan and Iraq, United Arab Emirates, in my travels working for peace. If I might take just a little short story here. I was thinking about this all week. A couple of years ago, I was coming home from Afghanistan at the airport at Kabul, which has It's one of the most dangerous places on the planet, and the security is just fantastic. You first are searched like half a mile away from the airport. But as I was going through the last screening, much like TSA here in the States, take your laptop out of your bag. And my laptop has a sticker that said, "Shut down Gitmo." On it. The young
This is a favorite.
young Afghan man who was clearing me said, "What's Gitmo?" And as soon as I said Guantanamo, he knew everything about it. And he went on about the use of dogs and the torture. And then he said, "Well, why is that on your laptop?" And I explained about what Watt does and about coming here and protesting. And I explained that I'd been to jail trying to close down Guantanamo and everything. And he said, "How long have you been doing this?" And I said, "Well, I think like 8-9 years." And he said, "It's still open, isn't it?" And then if I was expecting any kind of congratulations for my solidarity, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Because he said, "You're not doing a very good job, are you?"
Wow. Wow.
Specific.
And then he waved me on, and I felt like that's been like a challenge yes, for this young Afghan man who's so upset about Guantanamo, and he's just a random person. From the point of view of the people from those places, I don't deserve congratulations or thanks for what I'm doing. We haven't done enough, and we have to keep going.
Tom Casey, tell us about yourself.
I'm Casey. I'm from Buffalo, New York, a retired environmental engineer. I've been the organizer of a local or an annual gathering festival that's part of a national campaign Nonviolence. I'm also the local coordinator for Pax Christi, Western New York, which is a well-kept secret Catholic peace group. We don't intend it to be secret, but it seems to be. We're a unique subset of Catholic Church, and there's a number of us, and we're part of Pax Christi USA, and then there's Pax Christi International. So it's a group that was formed in France and Germany after World War II, where some lay people got together and said, "This is crazy. We're all Catholics and we're killing one another." So they've worked on peace for many, many years. They continue to work on peace. And like Brian said, we haven't done a real good job so far of convincing our country to embrace peace.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much is that your fault, having not doing a good job, and how much the hill that you have to climb or the mountain you have to climb to get to the other side. We also have Quinn with us. I don't know your last name, Quinn. So
My full name is Quinn Galvin.
Galvin.
Yep.
Yep. And what do? You going to
She's
school?
An organizer, galvanizer.
She's a galvanizer.
I like that.
Yeah. Are you going to school, or you're the youngest person at the table? I can say that.
I
Not
think
by much.
so.
Yeah.
Not by much.
Yeah.
I graduated somewhat recently. I think I might grow out of the word recently soon here, but I'm going to hold on to it as long as I can. I graduated in 2018 from Cleveland State University with a degree in international relations and a Spanish minor. And as far as my history with activism, I feel like I have been working within the system for about as long as I can remember, and I think that I really stepped into the role of an activist, not even when I started working with IRTF, but rather this past week when I really realized that, like, if I have an arrest on my permanent record, I don't want to work for somewhere that minds that anyway. If I, as a very, very white woman in the United States of America, can enter the carceral system on behalf of folks who either can't or don't feel comfortable or safe doing so, then I will. And I am.
The people here at this table seek to be arrested.
Yeah.
They want to
maybe
be
not all.
known.
Yeah.
No.
No, not all. Not all. Some of you do.
Oh, they always arrest the wrong people.
Yeah.
No, we go to point out crimes. We don't go to commit crimes. I really don't even think civil disobedience defines what we do, because we are not breaking the law. In fact, even though many of us might identify as anarchists ourselves, when it comes down to it, when we go to court and go on the street, is the highest respect for law and concern for law is on the part of us activists. And we see over and over again people who call themselves law enforcement flouting the law, and especially judges who are sworn to adjudicate according to the law and without prejudice. We see the most contempt for the law by the people in the highest courts.
This part of the WAT program is the risk of arrest.
Oh, yes.
And the decision was made early in this week to not risk arrest. And yet...
For our own cause.
Right. I mean, there was a lot of reasons why. Right. And
But there was a specificity between our own cause and
Fire Drill Fridays.
Doing an action in solidarity with other movement folks.
Right. And I think it should be pointed out that Brian, Chrissy, you weren't arrested, right? No.
I was not.
Right. Brian was.
I was supporting.
But many of the people
was.
here were. Yeah. Quinn was arrested.
I was.
And in fact, hugged by Jane Fonda.
I was hugged by Jane Fonda,
Yeah.
and today I turned in my fine right next to Martin Sheen.
President Sheen.
President Sheen.
What was his
And they did that for the last Fire Drill Fridays, which is being run by Jane Fonda.
I think it might be appropriate for Quinn to describe the banner she made for Fire Drill Fridays.
Absolutely.
And the unique connection between war and environmental destruction.
I'm glad that I totally will, but I also want to say that I'm glad that the community had that brainstorming sesh, because I don't think I would have come up with it on my own. I can pretty confidently say that I wouldn't have come up with it on my own. And Chrissy pointed out earlier today that it was a group effort, and it did take a village to make the connection that we did and will continue to make. But the banner read, "U.S. racist resource wars are killing the planet," which
with the burning planet.
with the earth, and it didn't turn out with quite the colors that I wanted to.
great.
But the fire looked great. With the planet on fire, and it was really well received.
It's really important to make the connection that the U.S. military is the world's largest polluter by far.
Right. They have the worst carbon footprint.
Worst carbon footprint of any organization.
More than 140
person.
countries together, I heard.
Yeah, it's
but
ridiculous.
Chrissy, I thought that was mostly cows farting.
And
It might have been me.
these racist resource wars are about oil, right?
Yeah.
They're about non-renewable resources, and
So the responsibility is layered.
But I think
1,000 times.
I need to point out that the actual creation of the sign or anything that's done at Watt is a communal effort. You may have come up with the idea,
That's
or
what
you
she
may
said.
have been letting it. Yeah, but it's everything is done communally, which is what I love about
It's
Witness
a great
Against Torture.
community.
Yeah.
So let's start with an easy question. All of you have been arrested for your actions for peace. As such, you have physically experienced what this country is about at its core. Not the idea of America, not America as some great dream, but America in practice, as it is experienced and lived. So who are we as a nation at our core?
I would say first, just really quick, before Brian probably starts the answer to that question, I'm going to put you on the spot because I think Brian has a great knowledge and history and wisdom because of his work for decades around the region and the issues. But you may have heard Quinn just a moment ago. We recognize that all people in this hemisphere are American, so we make it a clear point to say that that U.S. America, right? As Alan was joking earlier, Usians, right?
Well, that's me and Chris Brandt. Yeah, because Americans also are Mexicans and they're
Central
Nicaraguans.
and
they're
middle and
Canadians
meso and south and
Right.
yeah.
So we're really Usians.
We
and
are.
that seems so appropriate because we are using the world, but
Yeah.
Right.
So who are we as users and as polluters
and abusers.
and as torturers?
All right, she's looking at you, Brian.
Well, yeah, the Buffy St. Marie lyric, the genocide of this country's birth. Even the term American, the term, where does that come from? Americo Vespucci. That's a colonial term. The racism in this country and its so-called law enforcement. Again, I choke over that word because I don't see it. A couple years ago, when I was arrested at an action here, we had at the White House. We had 40 people in jumpsuits. The orange jumpsuits, kind of our symbol, which in the original prisoners brought to Guantanamo were wearing orange jumpsuits with the black hoods over their faces, and we used that symbol, that costume. Anyway, we had 40 people for the 40 people who are still there, and then 5 of them who've been cleared for release but have not been allowed to go, stepped into Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House, and over the years that piece of property, the place where veterans got their rights, the place where women protesting got the right to vote, the place where in the early 1970s Richard Nixon begged John Mitchell, the Attorney General, find some way to shut up these protesters outside my house. And even John Mitchell, the fascist, said, I'm sorry, Mr. President, we have a constitution, we can't stop them. Well, they've stopped it now, and it's a very, very controlled assault on free speech because that is such an effective place for people to protest. Anyway, 5 of us representing those 5 people stepped into the street and were arrested. And because of some arrests that I had in some activities I've had in the Las Vegas area, where Creech Air Force Base, where the drones, the Center for Drone Warfare, there was a judge in Las Vegas who just had it out for me, who issued a warrant for my arrest.
Wow.
Totally bogus. It was not based on any charges. So they held me for 48 hours or 24 hours to see if Las Vegas wanted to send somebody to come and get me, to extradite me. So I was 24 hours in central booking, and I've done that before. And every time I've been there, this time I was the only white person. The other times, the only other white people were people that I went in there with.
Right.
And just demographically, that would just be really, really weird. Each time I've been there, the guards and the other prisoners alike, they don't ask me if I'm a protester. They say, what are you protesting? Because the only way they see a white person in central cell block, this is a protester.
Right.
Because that's the only way a white person gets in there. It's very, very easy for a person of color to accidentally stumble into a situation where they get arrested for some piddly little thing. But the only way I got there was by consistently and persistently resisting the system. And everybody knows that. Like, nobody has to talk about that.
Tom, you were starting to answer this question too, I saw.
Yes.
Do you have a thought?
Yeah, well, Brian's got far more experience than me, but I didn't mention I've thrown my hat in the ring for Congress 3 times. The last time I put considerable energy into it, but I did not get the Democratic endorsement. I was very happy to support the endorser, who was running against Chris Collins, who was the first Republican to emphatically, off-the-wall, endorse Donald Trump. He's now awaiting sentencing for illegal trading.
Wow.
But America, in my thought, and the way I was raised, my father was a World War II veteran. He told me a lot about how fortunate we were. And one of my biggest influences has been the Veterans for Peace. And they've changed from peace abroad to peace abroad, peace at home. And what they've spelled out is we've got a lot of problems both places. And they're one of the most amazing groups that I'm not a veteran, but that I've been part of. And one of the things they emphasize over and over again is what makes America great is our moral foundation. And they admit the men who founded our country, and they're all men to begin with, there's a problem, were imperfect. But they definitely moved the needle towards more freedom, more liberty, and they set a foundation that we could build on, and we're going backwards.
Right.
That's where I see our country.
Right.
Really at the point of...
And we say backwards towards what? What is the backwards move?
Towards empire, towards violation of the values that some of us see and the veterans see in particular. We've obviously had a racist history and a lot of problems. But where we are right now with the way we're treating immigrants, with the continuation of the wars, with the military-industrial complex getting more and more and more money every year, we just appear to be out of control. Civil rights have gone down since 9/11. It appears lying has become profoundly part of what wins elections in our country. And Thomas Jefferson, he had a quote, "The whole art of government consists of the art of being honest." And that seems so bizarre in today's world.
Chrissy, did you want to add to that?
I would add to that. Actually, I would say that this is always who we've been. We were a country founded on genocide. As a displaced Indigenous person, I feel that very deeply, and I have great empathy and sadness for the Indigenous peoples of North America who suffered greatly. I also know that the U.S. quote-unquote Revolutionary War wasn't just about taxation, right? It was also about the fact that the British told us that we were supposed to stop using slaves, and we didn't want to. That is something that's problematic to me. Our police are, as I agree with Brian, our law enforcement officers don't quite uphold the law, in my view. I see them, the judiciary system, not charging people who have committed grave crimes and crimes against humanity, right? There's only one head of state in the world who was ever charged with crimes against humanity, and that's Efrain Rios Montt in Guatemala. The law enforcement officers or the police officers in this country were started as slave patrol, so they were started as a racist institution. So all we have known really is racism and genocide and settler colonialism
And division
and all sorts of types of greed.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to ask Quinn the same question, but I'm going to put it in a little bit different context. But the same question is like, what is America? We were you and all of us were at the last Fire Drill Fridays in Washington D.C. We heard that they're moving out to California now, because Jane Fonda's moving out to California, so it's going to be out there. And on the steps of the Congress, there was a bunch of you, about 40. Who were standing on the steps?
No,
I would
actually
say-
147.
And actually, I was
147,
talking. Yeah,
wow.
and I was talking to someone who he seemed to know what he was talking about, who had been speaking to the organizers behind Fire Drill Fridays, and they had said that they received registration paperwork for about 400 people who were considering risking arrest. By their estimates, there were about 300 people who were arrested.
Wow.
And so the estimate of 147 was a downgrade by the Capitol Police. So that's funky.
interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I wanted to use this context of the arrest. There were a lot of celebrities that were arrested, just throughout the names: Maggie Gyllenhaal, Susan Sarandon, Joaquin Phoenix, Martin Sheen. They were arrested, along with all you other ordinary people.
I don't know. Those orange jumpsuits are celebrities to me.
Yeah, there you go. But it was
I agree.
it was done, and I just want to emphasize this because I was standing back because I was pushed back by a phalanx of policemen who kept pushing us back and saying, if you step on the other side of me, you'll be arrested.
Arbitrary.
And it was really, step on the other side of me, you'll be arrested. Just as like 2 steps away, you'll be arrested.
Like
and that's
Brian was
very
saying,
scary to me.
It's not the law.
And we were pushed about a football field away from the fucking U.S. Congress.
Now we're allowed to swear on this.
Fucking
Fantastic.
U.S. Congress is my Congress.
Yeah.
And he'll
It's
do what he
mine.
wants.
These were the people I elected
Yeah.
and you elected are working. And they're working for me. And I am not allowed to be there. I am pushed away by these young women and men who are in these uniforms with Capitol Police on them. What does that say, Quinn, about what is America? Or USian? Yeah.
Those young men and women probably grew up seeing romanticized versions of what it's like to be a police officer in TV and movies, and they were like, I want to save lives, and then they didn't realize that all of this would come with it. It's a romanticization of U.S. law, and the fact that that law, which is being romanticized and glorified in their eyes, is then bogus. But are we taught that? No. And are they getting internships straight after they graduate at cool, rad, progressive organizations like IRTF? No.
It's also an indoctrination, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Tom, you were talking about like what your father told you about the war, right? And when we have these old stories of people who didn't have a choice, or people who had a choice and had good intentions, right? That we're told, this is why we're doing it. It's to help people, right? We're protecting, we're serving, etc. It's not just romanticization. It's like gaslighting. We're all just indoctrinated into the same narrative, the same soundbite that we hear all through, grade school, all through childhood, etc.
That's true, and I think even on top of that, if there's the indoctrination to just love up on how our law enforcement works, there's also the indoctrination to really make human connection and human fight seem silly. Like with the creation of the words like hippy dippy or like kumbaya.
Trivialize it.
I've been thinking in the past couple of days how, and maybe this is ethnocentric in some type of way for me to think this or say this, but I've been thinking like if those people who like scoffed at us or even harassed us as we passed by in orange jumpsuits with coffins earlier today, if they only had the sense of human connection that we felt to each other and to the earth and to art and music and color and the wind and all of these things, would they be different? And would they think differently? And would they treat us kindly? And would they treat folks in Guantanamo kindly? Would they treat folks in Dilley, Texas kindly?
I think we can agree they don't have the same perspective.
Which is sad. Not that I'm giving them a hall pass, but like, I wish someone would have taught them how to respect humans and human connection and the earth as much as they were taught to respect elders, which I do, and the law.
Yeah.
Power and authority.
Tom?
Yeah.
I think part of it is their indoctrination, and we were taught incorrectly. I mean, Howard Zinn and many others have pointed out we, like a lot of societies, but particularly ours, we're unwilling to see our huge black holes, our huge faults. And that, to me, is one of the things that signals the fall of empire.
Right.
Empires become so full of themselves. We Americans, the term was ugly American in Vietnam, we think we don't need to worry about the rest of the world because we run it. And that ain't going to be forever.
Right.
And right now, I like what Chris Hedges said the day after the recent assassination. They asked, what do you think we're at? He said, we're empire in decline. My biggest fear is how freaking long is it going to take us to decline to where we stop abusing the immense power?
Right.
Go ahead. Chris, you want to, Kristen? Yeah, I was going.
No,
I looked at the wall that the Trump administration has put up around the White House. It's awesome. It's black. It's ugly. this new gate that they're putting around.
It's just
It's
like the
overpriced.
It's just like the U.S.-Mexico border. You can see each president's version of wall and how much each administration has built it up and made it more and more militarized and enforced.
And is the wall supposed to keep something out from the White House?
It's the people's house, but the people don't belong there, apparently.
All right, I just want to just imagine the White House with a white picket fence around it.
Wouldn't that be cute?
With a little with a little bell on it, and you can ring the bell and then have picnics on the lawn.
It used to happen. There was a time.
Yeah.
Quinn was saying about people making fun of us, and I heard I had the black hood over
harassing.
my face, and there was one woman who was saying to her child, was saying, the mother, what's going on? And the mom said, oh, these people are just crazy, don't pay any attention to them.
Or there was another woman, or it might have been the same woman, who the kids were like, Mom, what is going on? And she was like, oh, those people think that people from Guantanamo Bay should be released, but they don't understand that they're actually the most vicious and violent terrorists in the world. So they were like, that was indoctrination, and it was also like really patronizing, not only to the kids but to us, and it was
And she
gross.
said it loud enough for you to hear it.
We
it was
also
it was
have
purposeful.
been here during the inauguration. We
God.
intend to be here during the inauguration. We intended to be here no matter which president was elected, because no matter which president is in office, this issue of torture is serious.
It's passed on.
And it's passed on. But we heard today what we heard during the inauguration, which is people who think waterboarding works, or that we should be decapitated because we also support people who they think should also be decapitated. It's really gross. It's really painful and very dangerous.
And
but
that goes back
it
to the
proves-
question, who are we?
It proves that, I mean, there's proof that waterboarding doesn't work, that torture doesn't work, right? There's lots and lots and lots of studies and research done about this issue.
But I often, when I hear people say, these are the worst of the worst, and these are dangerous people, sometimes I've said to those folks, well, then you need to call the FBI, because you have information. You have inside information that has eluded the CIA, military intelligence. I don't know where you
You're
learned
so
about
clever.
this, but you
Yeah.
don't. You have information that
Freaking
because
love Brian's
the Department of Defense says they have looked, and they have not found anything on all but like 7 of the 40 people.
Yep.
Okay, you busted their balloon, and what do? When you say that to them?
Of course, they realize at that point that I am crazy and irresponsible.
You've proven their
But
hypothesis.
see, I think we're at a point with the decay of our civilization, and I've been quoting Greta Thunberg quite a bit these last days. One thing she was asked when she was in the United States here a couple months ago, are you an optimist or a pessimist? And she said, I am a realist. And that is
Refreshing.
Is refreshing is because we are the realists, because we cannot realistically go on the way that we're going. The war on terror is going to kill all of us. Climate change is going to kill all of us. It is those of us who are calling for change. We are not the hippy-dippy kumbaya singers that Quinn is talking about. We are the ones, not Donald Rumsfeld, and not Donald Trump, and not John Kerry or Hillary Clinton. We are the ones who are taking a hard, cold, realistic look and refusing alibis and refusing euphemisms and just seeing the world as it is and seeing the cold, hard reality and saying these are the changes that have to be made for the continued existence of humanity on this planet.
Yeah, but you're crazy.
Well, of course, yeah.
In an insane world.
But Greta is not.
Yeah.
Greta is brilliant, and people have flocked and followed her, and she has righteously redirected a lot of attention to indigenous activists and environmental defenders and water protectors to uplift the work that they've been doing for decades.
You are listening to barcrawlradio, a podcast in which interesting people have a conversation at a bar. Today we are at the Dubliner Bar in Washington, D.C., talking with members of Witness Against Torture, working to end the incarceration of Muslims in Guantanamo. And we will be right back.
This January marks the 18th year since the opening of the prison at Guantanamo. 40 Muslim men remain in prison held there, all of whom have been in U.S. custody for more than a decade.
Activism cannot be easy in any environment. Especially it must be difficult in the one we are living in today. For instance, Brian, beginning July 2019, you trespassed on a German military air base, protesting U.S. nuclear weapons in Germany. In October of the same year, you spoke on a panel at the World Beyond Wars Global Conference in Limerick, Ireland. And this is a mere tip of the spear of what you do. It's hardly anything. Frank, who was supposed to be here, peace poet, said at today's Morning Circle, he spoke of facing burnout, and he confessed to his own depression that he's had. All the people at this table have consistently presenting and putting yourselves up against U.S. officialdom and being arrested. Can we talk about the sort of effort it takes, the physical effort, the spiritual effort, the wearing down that must happen in doing and continuing to do this work? What kind of toll does it take on you?
And what do you do to keep going?
I think the number one thing that helps most people in this situation is community. You do start with some individual just anger. It's built into us. Some of us seem to see more of it, as Quinn said, than others do. But then this Witness Against Torture is just a unique group, and it's other communities. When you stand together, you actually, you are very sad about why you're there, but it's joyous to be together.
And I've heard this before from other Witness Against Torture activists, that there is a deep, deep sadness, but there's a deep, deep joy at the same time. And it sounds anathema, but they seem to kind of mix together. Yeah, Chrissy.
Well, actually, I don't, unlike Brian, who I deeply respect and love, have great love for, I don't choose arrestable action as my primary tactic. As a person of color, I don't find it useful for more people of color to be in prison and to be spending my money on legal fees. However, I know that there are times when that is necessary and that there are certain moments as well, because of the arbitrary nature of how we are treated by officials and officers, that I could be arrested at any time for most of my actions that are, protesting injustice. I still experience burnout because there's still a cost to speaking truth to power, to truth telling. And it's important for me to focus on joy and to focus on community, as Thomas said. Adrienne Marie Brown talks a lot about creating joy and following the energy of the people that are in a current space at a current time, because there's only work and conversations and organizing that we can do with these people in this moment. This moment will never happen again, and so we need to follow the energy of what people have, and if that means taking a break or taking care of your family or having great mental health and physical health practices that help us get through
Therapy.
Each moment, therapy, etc. I also really love massage, and I know a massage, an activist healer who offers massage to activists in my community at a discounted rate, and particularly at a discounted rate to people of color and low-income people.
Nice.
Because she knows how much, and she's actually a member of this community. She's been here before Molly Nagin. She knows how helpful it is to make sure that we all keep going, right? But but we laugh so we don't cry. And we commune with each other over beer, over bread, over whatever, because we know that over arepas, which are my ethnic bread of choice, because my family's from Colombia. But it's important for us to share in the joy and sustenance of life. And so that is really what gives me hope. And my indigenous family in Colombia say that hope is my duty, but as Brian reminds us and calls us back to, that it can't be a cheap hope or a cheap grace, that it has to be authentic in impossibility and in real change and creation.
Yeah, and I recommend everyone to listen to this barcrawradio's extra program. I talked with Chrissy about her work that she does for the
Interreligious Task Force, IRTF.
Right, IRTF, which Quinn has mentioned a number of times in this podcast. I'd like to bring this conversation to a close here with a dream. I know that, and I'm referring again back to Frank, who is one of the peace poets. I'm sorry he couldn't make it because he was just wiped out after this week. He's been working very, very hard on a spiritual level to keep everyone's moving forward in their orange jumpsuits as you move throughout Washington, D.C. And it takes a toll. And we've been talking about that toll that it takes and what you do to get it. He said nothing's going to really change for another 7 generations. That was his time span for change to happen. I'm not sure how we get there or how we're going to get it right, but I wanted to play around with the idea of what this nation would look like if we got there. And you could be very specific about something that you see 7 generations from now that we don't have now, when we finally become an honorable nation, spiritually centered nation, a nation of everybody. I'm starting to answer my own question, right? What would it look like?
Well, first of all, it'd be a white picket fence around the White House.
We've landed on that.
Right? We've all agreed.
So we go around the table. What's one image of that world, of that nation?
I have two images. One is somehow we take the most diverse country in the history of the world, and we have respect for every nationality, every ethnicity. We give reparations to the indigenous, whose country we stole.
Yes,
and
Tom.
I think we...
I'm going to live with you. And the other big thing I would see right now is we clearly move away from ruthless capitalism and we develop economies like we see in some of the Western European countries, where there's a real safety net to see other human beings not as failures, but as people who need help, which we all need sometimes. Those two things.
I want to hear Brian, Chrissy, and then Quinn, who's our youngest member last. So Brian, what's one image?
Well, the United States simply won't exist. And it
there's
can't
a possibility.
keep existing. I disagree with people. I think a lot of my liberal friends are almost echoing Trump about make America great again, make America a country that respects and rights and that supports the... No, the United States was a mistake to begin with. The nation state is a mistake. It's something, it's a very, very recent construct. And it's something that has been imposed. There were no nation states in the Middle East until after World War I, and this is something imposed by all these lines. Were drawn by people who lived in Paris and London. The border between Afghanistan and Pakistan is called the Durand Line. Why should somebody in Pakistan or Afghanistan have any concern at all? We keep hearing this porous border and these scary people that keep going back and forth over this border in the mountains. Well, these are Pashtun people on both sides of the border.
Just like the Kurds.
And this is a line that was drawn by the Kurds. This is a line drawn by when the Russians and the Brits decided with their spheres of influence. But none of these borders, none of them hold. None of them should hold. I just don't, and I'm not that, I love the people of this country. I love my neighbors, and it's for them too. It's for all these people around us. The United States of America as an institution does not protect the people here around us in the city, the people in this bar. We're all better off without it, and that's, I really believe that's going to have to be what the future is.
Chrissy, get rid of the United States? No more? Or can we do something with this structure?
Well, it can't look like what it does. I'll just say that. I appreciate that both of my compas have just called attention to reparations, but one that hasn't been said yet is reparations for Afro-descendant peoples. The Fellowship of Reconciliation has a reparations and spirituality campaign that has done a lot of work that has grown out of the Ferguson uprising and the Black Lives Matter movement to really teach people that international sanctuary and reparations are not just one-time actions, but they're, as we started this conversation, they're based in relationship and community, and it's a lens and a mindset and a way of operating and a way of seeing actions and dismantling power imbalances. So reparations is a great start, but to seek reconciliation, we have to be on the path to repair first. And I would say also that the UN Declaration of Human Rights is a beautiful, beautiful document signed in 1948. 30 basic articles that no country, no nation state in the world has ever achieved. The right to a nationality and the freedom to change it. The right to rest and to leisure. The right to seek asylum. These are basic human rights that have never been realized in any country ever, for all 30 of them to be realized for any one person. So I think it's about individual sovereignty. I think it's about true collective liberation more broadly. And so that looks like resources instead of incarceration, instead of stop and frisk, instead of the mass incarceration system. Excuse me. That also looks like healthcare for all. That looks like education for all, and that looks like a revolution. And I think that we have an opportunity to bring that revolution about if we're willing to really achieve.
And open borders.
Sound a little bit like Bernie.
Maybe.
Yes.
And open borders.
Absolutely. People deserve free movement.
Yeah.
Quinn, you have the last word.
No pressure. I think that studying international relations and comparative politics in my undergrad, we talked a lot about what is the right form of governing for the vast amount of people that we have on this planet and the vast amount of dialects and languages and ethnicities and national groups and not just national groups as in the way that we think of it now, but nations, like nations indigenous to land, all that jazz. I think that the fun part of this is that there is no right answer. We just know that this isn't working. And so input from all people sounds like a good idea. Recognizing all people and the humanity of all people sounds like a good idea. And allowing for the human needs of all people to be met so that we don't... I also studied peace and conflict resolutions with a dope professor named Emily Weglian, who I love. Shout out. And she taught me a lot about what it means to not have your human needs met. And when that happens, you go to different extents to reach the place that you need to be in order to live.
Yeah.
And I should also rephrase that to say not in order to live, because I would say most people in this system are not able to fully live. In order to survive would feel more right to me. In order to feel like you as a human are being supported by the nation that you call your peoples, you need to not go into debt if you get your tonsils out. You need to not
You
go
get a college
homeless.
degree.
You need a college degree because now it's become ever clear that in order to get a job here, you need at least a master's degree. You'll hear me say it time and time again, but it's bonkers. You need to not go homeless after spending one paycheck on a car, like fixing your car. And it's been shown that that is oftentimes the case. People are one paycheck away from homelessness, often, if they don't have the safety net of having a cool family like I do. Honesty hour, I'm broke, but my parents are amazing, and they allow me to stay at their home. Not everybody has that because of many different reasons. And if those things were addressed and taken into consideration and taken into care by the place that we call our home, I think that a lot of people would feel much more secure, and therefore we would have a lot less conflict, which would then lead to more security, which would then lead to less conflict, and on and on and on. It's a spiral up rather than a spiral down.
Ooh.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. You've been
Thank
listening
you
to
all.
Bar Crawl Radio. We have been talking with 4 amazing activists for peace in our country and our world. Thanks to you all.
Thanks to all of you. So we're at the Dubliner. There's a lot of noise going on around us. We're actually
There's
right
always
in the
live
middle of
music
winter,
here.
and the window's open.
Favorite.
And it's almost 70 degrees. It's crazy. That might be climate change.
Yeah, climate change is definitely coming our way. Again, thank you all, Chrissy, Brian, Tom, and Quinn. So here we go. I'm going to go through it slowly.
Yeah, that was
Thank
really
you.
cool.
Thank you. You all were great. And thanks for stepping in.